stuck below 1500 elo and not sure how to improve? You're not alone. Many players struggle with the same mistakes, but I'm here to help. After analyzing thousands of games of your level, I've identified the key mistakes that hold you back. And this strategy has already helped many of my students to break past 1500 elo. Now it's your turn. What's up, chess player, and welcome to the Journey to Grandmaster, the place where you can improve every single aspect of your chess game. This is Jessica. She is a member of our transformational program's 30-day training plan, and she played this rapid game which illustrates all of the common mistakes that players are making below 1500 elo that you absolutely have to stop making, as well as illustrates what you really should do to strive in your games and finally break through. So the game started normally with d4. By the way, this move is much better than e4 for this level, in my personal opinion, because you have far fewer different types of positions that you have to understand. Whereas in e4, you have to know what to do in the Sicilian, e5, c6, e6, whatever black might play. Those are completely different openings with different ideas that you all need to know. Whereas in d4, you can play more systematically in terms of schemes. So what happened here is a weird move, b6. By the way, at this level, you don't really care when your opponent is doing something weird in the opening. You just need to stick to the golden principles. You have to focus on three things in the openings. Center, fight for the center, development of the pieces, bring every single one of your pieces as fast as possible and as active as possible. Golden rule is one piece, one move. And finally, third one, make sure your king is secure. Normally, you make castles to achieve that. But here comes the first mistake that Jessica does here. She plays bishop to b5, and she says, well, that's the most active square for the bishops, so I went here, and if my opponent is gonna attack, which actually happened, then I'm gonna create some weaknesses in his camp. But that is not the right approach. First of all, it breaks the golden principle, one piece, one move. And secondly, your opponent got a lot of time here and wins a lot of space that he might further use to his advantage. And hoping that those weaknesses will play a big role is too optimistic. So don't invent bicycle, just make normal moves. Find an active square for your piece. d3 is a very nice one because we prepared the move e4. The bishop is actually useful here, all good. But bishop b5, we are not creating any threats. d7 is protected 27 times, so what are we even doing here? And then that happened. Black played knight to c6, which is not really that consistent. That is also one of the main mistakes that people are making on this level. Their game is not really consistent. Black played g6, and the idea is, of course, to play bishop g7. But because white distracted him with this bishop e5, and then he played that move, he completely forgot that he played g6 in the first place. At least that's my idea of what happened. So he played here. Okay, castles and now knight a5. At least he has an idea, he wants to now exchange that bishop. So not only we have lost that much time with this bishop, now we are going to lose it, and our opponent is going to have a pair of bishops advantage. Now Jessica plays c3, which is also not a great move because it's not following any of the three goals that we have in the opening. It's not fighting for the center, it's not developing any pieces, it's not helping our king. So instead, we of course could have just developed our next piece, the knight to d2, which defends this one, supports that one, just in general a very good thing. Instead, after c3, knight takes, and now we have a choice how to take. Jessica took here with the queen, which is not a great thing, and she understood her mistake as well, because she writes, well, this queen was important here, it protected the knight, and now it's not, and black could have taken advantage of that. She says, I thought that this queen is going to be active, but actually it's not true. As soon as black plays e6, which they actually did, the queen is more or less useless here. It's not doing anything. It can never attack it or anything. But the reason why this move is not the best is that black could have taken it first and then played e6, and now the king is naked and can be attacked. So how do you decide before making the move whether it's a right move for you or not? Well, you have to look at two things. First, you need to think what the queen was doing on d1 that it's not doing anymore on b3. That would be protecting that knight. Second, you look at what the queen is doing now on b3 that it wasn't doing on d1, which might be attacking f7. And then you want to compare those things and decide whether the advantages outperform the disadvantages. In this case, it's not, because like I said, after e6, the queen is not doing anything useful here, whereas on d1, it was doing a very useful job. At the same time, we can take with the pawn, which is great for us, because we are taking towards the center. It's always great. We are opening up this rook, which without making any moves, it's now suddenly a very active piece and creates some troubles for our opponent. And this queen stays on d1, which is also very helpful. Okay, queen takes, black played e6, and now knight bd2, which is a good move. We are developing a new piece and defending that guy. Black plays bishop to d5 here, which is a horrible move that I ask you to never make in your moves. It's like saying to all of those guys, you are useless. I don't care about you. I have no respect. I just care about this guy. I love him so much, the bishop, and I don't care about anything else. This is not the right approach in chess. In fact, it even helps this queen to improve its position. Now it's actually doing something useful. It's preparing the move e4, and the bishop is stupid on d5. In one move, it's getting attacked, and it has to go back, wasting even more time. This is exactly the reason why I need to stick to the rule one piece, one move. And you see that people below 1500 always and always break this rule. That is why it's so important to talk about it and to make sure that you don't do it in your games. Jessica plays rook e1, which is a great move. It brings a new piece into the game, which is a very active one and supports this pawn, so that after knight f6, we can continue our plan and develop a new piece. Because look at those pieces. They are still not participating in the game. And we want to invite everybody to the party. We cannot develop our rook because it's blocked by the bishop. We cannot develop our bishop because it's blocked by the knight. So we have to get rid of this knight. Where should it go? Well, first, always consider active moves, moves forward. And if it doesn't work, then we consider move backwards. Here we have a nice move forward. And remember, Jessica wanted to exploit those weaknesses when she initially played bishop b5. Well, guess what? Because of this stupid and slow play from black, we actually have an opportunity to do that. But for some reason, instead of that, Jessica does not develop the pieces, does not continue it. She plays the move d5. And she wants to attack in the center, but she's not ready for it because like it's protected 27 times. Everything is great for black. And black also has a pair of bishops. So opening up the center is not something you want to do. After castles, Jessica doesn't know what to do. She says, I don't want to take it because that's gonna open up black pieces. And what have I achieved? I achieved nothing. I have exchanged this active pawn against this absolutely passive pawn. And I have wasted 2 tempi to achieve that. So it's absolutely stupid. And I absolutely agree that you don't want to take it on a6. But then my question is, why on earth do you start with playing d5 in the first place? It's not giving you anything at all. And now you have a problem here that your pawn is hanging. Before, it wasn't hanging, it was a great pawn, absolutely no problems. You have created this problem for yourself, and now you have to deal with it. So please don't create unnecessary problems for yourself. Jessica plays c4, which is in theory a nice idea because you want to protect your pawn and make sure that this bishop is not getting attacked. The problem is, because you played that bishop b5 idea, now black's pawns are very active and he can just take everything, and if you take it back, he wins a pawn, everything is perfect. Even if you do take on e6 first to avoid that, then it's also not great, because now you have 2 bishops, open pieces, which are so great. It's a dream that can happen to a person with 2 bishops advantage. That is exactly why black does all of that and opens up the position. No, he plays b4. That is such a stupid move. Now we have a perfect pawn structure as white. So please remember, if you have a pair of bishops, you always want to activate it to open up the position. Bishops love open diagonals. You never want to allow your opponent to block everything. Okay, now Jessica plays knight to b3, which is finally continuing the development. It's not even the best move. There was a much more active opportunity to play e5 immediately. And actually, that's a high-level positional idea that I absolutely want to show you. I understand below 1500 ELO, it's difficult to implement it, but we strive for the best. But the point is, the knight has to go back. First of all, it's always great if we go forward and we create a threat and our opponent has to get to the ugly square. Either e8 or h5 is even worse. Now we play knight to b3. We actually sacrifice this pawn. But when black takes it, we have knight a5 attacking, really exploiting that weakness that we said we are going to do in the very beginning. And after queen c8, now the real magic happens. We play c5 as white. And even though we are a pawn down, look at those miserable pieces that black has in this position. This bishop is absolutely an idiot. It has no moves and is blocked by its pawn. This knight has 0 moves to go. Horrible, horrible piece. This bishop is also blocked. And all of those pieces, because of those minor pieces, they also can't really strive and do anything useful. So this is an absolute dream in terms of positional play for white. And yeah, that would be very nice. But of course, we are still not that advanced. Still, just playing knight b3 is great because we are going forwards, we create some threats. Now after takes, we have to take a decision. Very instructive moments. Do you take with the c pawn or e pawn? Feel free to pause the video for a second to decide for yourself. Jessica took here with the e pawn, which is quite fine because we open up the e file, it makes some sense. But the best move is to take with the c pawn. Why? Because we have here more pawns in the center. You normally always want to take towards the center so you have more opportunities and you don't necessarily need to go forwards immediately. I understand the pawn is hanging. You don't need to do that. It's just enough that you control so many squares here and then you can continue your development, create some difficulties. By the way, this takes also opens up the file for the queen and later on for the rook, where we are going to be very active. So that was the best, but e takes d is also not that bad. a5, we play bishop g5, we develop a new piece, great. Black plays c6, which is a horrible move because Jessica plays now d6. She understood very well that if her opponent has a pair of bishops, she does not want to open up the position. She wants to close it. But then after queen b8, we have an incredibly exciting and instructive moment. Queen attacks the pawn. Obviously, we don't just want to lose it like that. Feel free to pause the video for a second to find the best move for white. Very instructive moment. There are 2 good ways here to go about this position. First, you are looking at the most active opportunities, which is actually what you should always do. So you use the 4-step system to find the best move in the position: checks, captures, threats, and active moves. You don't have any checks. You have a capture here, but it's stupid. You have a capture here, but it's even more stupid. The next step is to create a threat. There is a beautiful move here, knight to c5, which is creating a threat of attacking this bishop, so we defend that pawn tactically. At the same time, we block that pawn so it can never move. We have an active piece, this bishop is miserable, and we actively protect that pawn. But that is a little bit complicated because we need to calculate variations, our pawn is still technically hanging, and blah blah blah. The easy way would be to say, well, we haven't still finished our development. We have this rook on a1, which is doing absolutely nothing, and we can just bring it to the d file, where it's protecting that pawn on d6, and we still have this opportunity to play knight c5 next move without having any risks. Unfortunately, Jessica didn't do any of those and instead played c5. It has advantages, it protects that pawn and it blocks that pawn, but it takes this beautiful c5 outpost from the knight away. And now black uses that, playing a4, attacking the knight. The next question. Also, what do you do here? Where do you go with the knight? Very instructive. Jessica plays here knight d2 because she says, well, I wanted to play knight d4, but I don't see where the knight is going afterwards, which is not the right approach. The knight is just great here. It does not necessarily need to go. In fact, the knight in the center of the board is the best thing you can ever imagine. And you should go here. It's also blocking this bishop, which is actually the best piece that black has. And now you're stopping him from actively using it. So this move is great. And after knight d2, we have a problem because black plays knight d5, activating both of the pieces at the same time. Now the knight is in the center. The same situation, it cannot go forward, but he doesn't need to. He's just happy about the fact that the knight is so great, and it also opens up this bishop that is now a real monster. Now, a really good point here for you to pause the video for a second and find the right move, because Jessica didn't find it, and even when she saw the right move, she didn't understand why it's so great for white. I hope you have taken your time here, because if you want to go above 1500 ELO, you have to understand such ideas. So if you carefully look at the position, you're gonna see that black is doing not that bad, only because he has 2 extremely active pieces. This knight on d5 and the bishop on g7. Everybody else are just incredibly miserable. They are doing absolutely nothing. So if you imagine for a second that we exchange somehow these pieces, let's say against these 2, we are just winning the game on the spot. We are gonna just deliver a checkmate in a few moves. So the right, and of course this bishop is the biggest monster, the biggest threat to our position. That is why the right move here is to play bishop to e3, because we want to remaneuver it to d4. It's not doing anything on g5 anymore, there is no queen to pin. And so we can remaneuver it here and exchange against this bishop, and then we are out of any trouble, and we are just gonna continue our attack for free. Now black either has to allow us that, or he has to take, which is also good for us, because now we get rid of the other very active piece, and then just with this bishop we are going to be able to handle it and create our threats. Instead, Jessica played rook to d1 now, which is actually not following our plan. So in the middle game, it's essential that you follow one of the two goals. Either you have your own goal, which in this particular case, the goal would be to exchange those two active pieces, and you make everything you can to do that, or you stop your opponent's plan. But rook to d1 doesn't really help with any of that, because now black can play bishop a6, activating yet another piece, and slowly but surely those pieces are alive, and now he can use his queen as well, prepare the move b3, everything is great. And we also don't really have an active idea. With the move rook to d1, we don't create any threats, which is exactly why black played here bishop to c8. This is such a crazy move. I can never explain it. It's clear for me that the black player is not a Journey to Grandmaster viewer, because you can never, if you can go forward, that's the same idea to open up the queen, I get it, but why on earth do you go to c8? What the bishop is doing here? It's completely stuck there. It's also blocking your back rank piece coordination. You can never do that. I might imagine you can tell me, okay, but he doesn't want to lose his pawn, he doesn't see that there is cool idea here to play bishop e2, that's a discover attack, although I would say every time you have the queen on the same file with the rook, you always have to think about discover attacks. But even if you don't see all of that, well, simple enough, the queen was defending the pawn on b2, and now it's not, so you can just take this pawn back. Even that is enough, because now this knight can jump there, you have ideas as black. It can never be worse than bishop to c8 back. This is absolutely horrific. I hope you will never ever make such a move in your games. Always try to go forward first. Jessica plays knight e4 because she tries to be active, she tries to go forward. The reason why this move is not so great, because it just doesn't use all of the momentum. We can go forward here and actually create a threat. That is a huge difference. Here we create a threat, whereas if you play knight to e4, we don't create any threats. Or alternatively, we can go back to our idea and play bishop to d4 and try to exchange. So in every case, we have a very concrete idea. The drawback of the move knight e4, it does not really have a concrete idea. And also black can just continue his idea with b3 and be very active here, again creating a problem for us. That is exactly the reason why black plays here king to h8. What? Like, what are you doing there? You first play bishop to c8 on one part of the board, which is a very weird move, but at least it's like you want to attack here, and then suddenly you play king to h8 on a completely different part of the board. Why? Why on earth would you do that? That is completely shocking for me. Please never do that in your own games. Now Jessica plays rook e2, which is way too slow. She wants to double her rooks here, saying that, well, finally, probably understanding that the rook is not doing much on the d file, but it's way too slow. The position just does not allow you to play that slowly. You have to look for more direct ways to create threats for your opponent. You can attack the rook, and if the rook goes away, then you can attack this guy on f7, because this king for some reason went away to h8. That would be an active way to go about it. You also suddenly have some sacrifices here just because you are so active and those pieces are not participating in the game at all. Like knight f6 is just destroying black here. You never lose any material. This rook is even unprotected because of that horrible move bishop c8, and it all works out for you because you have so many active pieces. That's what you're aiming for. You don't want any unemployment going on in your camp. Instead, you want to be as active as possible with all of your pieces. Rook e2 does not create any threat. That is why it allows black to go b3 and create a threat of your own. So it's always a fight for the initiative. Either you're going to be in the driver's seat or your opponent. It's better be you. Now Jessica does something that is very tough for me to understand. She plays queen to d2. And she says, I'm okay with my opponent grabbing a pawn for free and creating a horrible passer that I have to live with forever. Like, you can never leave now with this rook, the back rank, because it's going to be just a free queen for black. And you can never even win it, actually, because then there would be so many horrible problems here. And you had a very simple opportunity just to take this pawn, exchange it, then you don't lose anything, and you can just play normally afterwards. It's so difficult for me to understand. So if you have an opportunity to make an active move to eliminate one of your opponent's attacking pieces, and you don't lose immediately afterwards, then please do it. Don't make the life more complicated than it is in reality. Okay, black took it, and now the positive side is Jessica understood that, well, here she is lost, and in general, strategically, she is busted. So she absolutely has to create counterplay on the king side. Either she delivers a checkmate or she loses the game. So she plays bishop h6. Maybe not the best way to do it, but at least it's a move in the right direction. Black plays bishop a6, finally realizing this bishop on c8 is just a nightmare. It should have never moved there. So he plays bishop a6, and Jessica plays rook e1. And so basically that means we have just wasted two tempi here with rook e2 and rook e1 back. This is something you should never ever make in your games. If you're going somewhere and your opponent has a way to attack it, and then you just need to go back, then never make that move in the first place. So the point here is, the main mistake that people under 1500 ELO are making, they're playing chess as if they're alone on the chessboard, and that's never the case. So every time before you make your move, try to understand what can be your opponent's response. This is the golden tip that is going to save you from most of your blunders and help you to bring your chess to the next level. Black plays here queen to b3, which is quite an active move going forward. Not the best one, but still. Bishop takes, king takes, and now Jessica plays queen d4, which in theory is a very good move. It's a check, it's improving our queen, we go forwards, we try to be active, create counterplay. That's all nice. The problem is, again, we are not playing alone, and black can play here f6, and now this pawn is very important because it covers so many squares here, we cannot go forward, and next move, black just wants to play queen b4, offer a queen's exchange, and then we are in trouble, because the endgame is completely lost. So the better move would be instead to play knight e5 to create a threat, because we are attacking here, and then maybe we can bring the queen. So black still didn't play f6, we have such an opportunity. Okay, black played king g8, which is very bad move. Instead of every time you have a choice between going forward and making an active move and going backwards and making a passive move, always start with the active opportunity. Try to understand whether it works for you, and only if it doesn't work, then even start considering the passive alternative. That would help you so much in chess. And now there is a key moment. There are two ways of how to continue. Jessica understands she absolutely has to go on into the attack, otherwise this is not nice. So she has two alternatives, knight f6 and knight e5. Both are knight moves forward. Jessica plays knight to f6. Now, because it's a move with a check, she thinks that's the most active move. And that's true, but it's also a very bad move. So the fact that the move is a check does not necessarily mean that's the right move. It means that you have to start considering your options with it, because check is the most active move. And if there is a very good move in the position, then there is a very big chance it's either a check or a capture or a threat. So you absolutely must start with this order, not to miss it. But it does not necessarily mean that it's a great move. The next step is to calculate the variations and think what your opponent can do. The problem is, black can just take this knight on f6. And remember what we said before, strategically black is just winning. If he manages to exchange pieces, the game is over. And so what you are doing with this move knight to f6, you are helping him. You exchange pieces and you reduce your attacking potential, your attacking material here. The knight is great, and now you're just saying, okay, let's exchange. But that's exactly what black wants. And even worse, afterwards, you are not creating any threats, so now black has a free move. Instead, when you are playing knight e5, instead of decreasing your attacking potential, you increase it because you have a new piece in the attack, and you create a threat here so that black needs to deal with it. So the difference is absolutely huge. It's equal now, but it's completely lost after knight to f6. Black is just winning. It's even not the only threat that you create. because you can also play knight to g4, and that would be checkmate threat in just one move. This is how powerful that one move is. But after knight f6, takes, and now black can do whatever he wants. The question is, what should black do here? It's an incredibly instructive moment, because what black player played here is absolutely horrible. And I'm not saying that to humiliate him, but rather to explain you why such a strategy is very bad. He played queen to b8 with an idea to play queen to d8, with an idea to exchange the queens. So the idea is great, but the problem is it's never executable, because after queen to d8 attacking the queen, I can just put my rook on e7, which I am happy to do anyway, because this rook is just a dream position. And then what the queen is doing on d8, it never ever has any useful function here. So, and the queen is already active on b3. The right approach is you want to activate as many pieces into the game as possible. And it's not only about the opening. You want to activate your pieces regardless of what stage of the game we are. Sometimes it's endgame and you still have some pieces that are not participating in the game. That's just wrong. The simplest yet very powerful strategy that you can use to achieve that, just ask yourself, which one of my pieces is the worst placed one, and how can I improve it? If you look at black's position, it's clear that the one piece that is absolutely useless right now is this rook on a8. And there is a very simple way to deal with it. You can play rook a to e8, and there is this one, which is a very active piece for white, and you can just try to exchange it. And also, the fewer rooks stay on the back rank, the more dangerous this pawn on a2 becomes. So it's all just pluses, if you think in the right way in terms of activating all of your pieces. Instead, after queen to b8, after h4, black is basically busted. Unfortunately, Jessica plays queen to h4 instead. So this is a very important distinction. If you have a choice between bringing a new piece into the attack, adding more attackers, so like you are creating a group of attackers and then you attack all together. Instead, Jessica uses the same piece that is already very active and goes back with it. It's always worse, because you're not that active and you don't have as many pieces in the attack. Yes, she creates a threat of a checkmate, which is great, and she plays it after knight g5, but if black just plays h5, well, it's not that simple now to deliver the checkmate, and your queen is not that active anymore on f6. In fact, this position is actually better for black here. You're gonna love it! I have made a free 30-day training plan so you can finally fulfill your chess potential. Every day you're gonna get an educational video to improve your chess and put your knowledge into practice. I'm so excited to have you in our community, where you have an opportunity to get your game to be fully analyzed by me completely for free. Make sure to secure your free spot before it's too late. The link is in the description. For some reason, instead, black plays here h6, maybe it's a mouse click, maybe he was nervous that he's in time trouble, but after queen h6, he has to resign because it's a checkmate. I hope you have learned a lot today, and now you know how you should play to achieve 1500 ELO in chess. To help you get there as fast as possible, I have prepared for you a detailed step-by-step process which I share with you in this video completely for free.